Well, good evening and welcome to another edition of the Island Stat Sports Show on this Wednesday, October 21st. Joining me as co-host, Jason Juggling J. Ford. Jay, it's been a very interesting week of sports. But first, let's get to how has been your weekend, your week, and all the like since last Wednesday?
Well, since last Wednesday, it's the sporting world hasn't stopped. It's going on extra dry. Obviously the local sports, the international sports. The IPL was amazing over the weekend. As you know, we've talked about some of the IPL games over the weekend. The World Series has started. And the basketball finished. And then just looking at the local sports that are going on around the island with karting and everything that's going on. Karting, obviously soccer, or football, we say here. And then the anticipation of the rugby, the anticipation of the golf, the anticipation of the Gold Cup. So here on the island, it's feverish. Some good games we're going to talk about, and, a couple of controversies. Well, we expect that every week. From some certain referees, you just know it's going to be something that's going to go.
Well,
that doesn't sit well.
We won't talk about the 4-second decision that the referee made. We'll talk about the 89 minutes and 56 seconds of missing goals, and then we'll see what we get.
Well, and see, that's why I said that's where I get off with. You know me, I tell you, sport is whatever team or whatever player makes the least amount of mistakes.
There you go. I'm glad you mentioned the golf, because at the bottom of the hour or thereabouts, we're going to be joined by Sean Sovaco, who's the director of the Bermuda Championship that will get underway next weekend, or get underway next week. He will be discussing the four latest players to sign up, 4 former major winners, and 2 of them have actually played in Bermuda when we had the Grand Slam here. So there'll be some interesting talks about that event. And obviously, with the weather expected over this weekend, we'll see how they're preparing up at the Port Royal Golf Course just for that, and ensuring that things will be ready for Tuesday's tee off in the Pro-Am, and then obviously we get underway on Thursday. But looking at last night, we want to go into last night where we had 6 players over in the UK. Their teams are in action. Nikki Wells and Bristol City went down 1-0 to Middlesbrough. Milan Butterfield was an unused sub, and his Chesterfield teammates went down to Wealdstone 3-2. Norrie Scott was an unused sub as Hastings put on a brilliant display, and they won 3-0 over Three Bridges. Janai Butterfield-Steed and his Kendalltown Football Club teammates played to a 2-2 draw with Ramsbottom United. Unfortunately, Cole Hall's team, Redcliffe, their match was called off due to COVID concerns. They were supposed to play Ashton United, and Ileo Deal and his Eccleston teammates went down 4-1 to Newcastle Town. So it was a topsy-turvy night for the players over in the UK. But obviously having the opportunity to have so many players playing over in the UK, it only improves the international realm for Bermuda. And obviously once our players mix with these players, their game rises as well.
Yeah, most definitely. It's surprising to see that taking a drive with my daughter this afternoon, going over Barker Seal. So that's the Ocean View Golf Course. I'll be walking across the crosswalk from one tee box to the next tee box, I should say. The national coach, Kyle Iporn. Didn't get to talk to him much, but in saying that, he spoke about it many times, that the more our players are abroad playing or even being in that professional atmosphere, it only bodes well for all our local boys here. I mean, it's something for, number one, for our local boys to strive for, because we've seen off of one tournament how you can get picked up.
Yeah.
We spoke about it off air about Dale Lee. Probably about a year and 18 months ago, his career looked like it was, what was really happening. And that goal, the showing in the Gold Cup, and the Nations League there really prompted him up for somebody to pick him up. So in saying that, Naki, the Bristol City's having a rough start so far.
Actually, no, that was the first loss. They were leading the league.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Now, one thing that did come out, and we talked about it off air, and something else came out today. We've been talking about the pandemic, how it's affecting these leagues. Yesterday, Manchester United had mentioned that they lost £70 million already this year, approximately losing 4 to 5 million a game at Old Trafford. Now, if they are losing that type of money, it doesn't bode well for those smaller clubs. And I'm bringing up the smaller clubs because we're talking about our local boys. Our local boys are in those smaller clubs, those smaller community clubs, as we will say. And it's going to be interesting how long will they be able to have the games, because they're playing the games, without the fans that they need in revenue.
A lot of the lower leagues are actually got up to 200 fans. Darlington's able to have 200. Some of the other clubs are able to have 200, so forth. Especially the ones that don't have the opportunity to get that TV coverage.
Yes.
So there's a way for them to kind of. But I know 200 fans is not making them any money to pay the bills that are needed. They have the English Premier League on behalf of the rest of the leagues have gone and tried to get money from the government. They turned down a deal because the deal for the lower leagues was just nowhere near what they were looking for to help them. Because remember, the Premier Division and the Championship, for that matter, have that TV deal. So they primarily, although they're losing money, a lot of money at the end of the season, because these games are still played, they're going to get a bulk of money from those TV rights. Where those lower leagues, as you have explained, where we have a lot of players involved, they don't benefit from that unless they get into the FA. And now Darlington, Justin Donovan, his team's one win away from being in the FA Cup proper, and believe it or not, it's a significant amount of money whether you win or lose once you're in the draw. I mean if they win one game in the proper tournament, that could probably pay everybody's wage for the season. So it's that important right now that those lower league clubs survive somehow, some way, but everybody's struggling.
Have you spoken with any of the players regarding just their future as far as salaries are? Because of the pandemic, the predicament the clubs are in, are they expecting to, number one, take a pay cut? Because, I mean, that's going to be across the board, whether you're in sport or whether, the average man. The government's going to be asking, or clubs are going to be asking, or employers are going to be asking for employees to take a pay cut. Have you had those discussions with these players? I
haven't had those discussions, and I've been looking at the clubs. I don't think the clubs have yet to make that public if they have asked the players to. I know the Premier League and all that, they haven't made that announcement. Some clubs have, and some have not publicly made that request open. But I'm not sure about the lower leagues, how they're doing that, because if you believe it or not, I mean, they were paying probably minimum as it is. Just to survive in those leagues. I mean, my gracious, it's got to be one of those things. Basically, if you look at it, the town keeps the club
now. See, that's in operation. That's what I was going to talk about, because like in the United States, when it comes to college teams, some of these college teams in these college towns, we call them, and that, especially if that team is doing great, the town does great.
Yeah,
financially. I mean, the pubs, the bars, everything, the mall, everything does great around the. And I remember hearing a report after LeBron James went to play for Cleveland. When he left Cleveland, he came back to Cleveland. And then when he left Cleveland, how their economy has took that seesaw with him coming and going.
Right.
obviously abundance of jobs, and then abundance of jobs being lost because you're not having the people, the attention, all of that around there. Those small English clubs, they're community clubs, so they're the heartbeat of those communities, and it'd be interesting how they're going to hopefully get some help from the government,
right?
And I'm pretty sure there's talks have been had already or continue to have.
The problem is one of the biggest problems is that the government's bleeding money too, because they've got to find other ways to keep other people, healthy and not get hungry. So it's a seesaw battle. It's one of those things where it's a catch-22. I mean, if you look at it, the UK, some parts are going back really on lockdown.
Yes.
Which will affect some sports, especially in the lower leagues. In the Premier League and the Championship and so forth in those towns, because those players are so well guarded and got the medical and all the things in place for the day-to-day operation. I think they'll survive it unless there's a countrywide shutdown, and then what would happen?
You mentioned something just now too, and I'm just, sometimes we don't think about the actual cost. But the extra cost, these clubs have to, for the bubble or a type of a bubble or testing. And all the PPE.
Every day.
Everything, all the PPE, all that comes with a cost. So, you're not going to lose some money from the gate, but you're also spending more money.
More money. Because remember, the players are being tested every day before training.
Yeah.
Every day before a game, after a game. Because if you have a positive after a game, then the other team has to be notified. You can't make it to the next day, kind of thing. So you're tested they're tested so much that they could probably do it themselves and be a pro at it, kind of thing. So and that comes, as you said, that comes with a cost. Because you have to have a qualified person doing the testing in order to, when you get a positive, to be able to confirm it is a positive, and then you go from there. So.
I'd love to talk to some of these players after the pandemic and just see how it affected them mentally while playing.
Yeah. Yep. It would have to. It would have to. Because remember, they were locked down as well, and their seasons were cut short, and now they're back up and running, but things are a lot different. Yeah. So, turning to the local front for football over the weekend. If I can recall, on Saturday, Dendytown Hornets beat Somerset Trojans up at Somerset 3-1. Saturday night, Southampton Rangers came from 2-0 down to draw 2-2 with Robin Hood. Then on Sunday, Devonshire Cougars defeated St. George's at Wellington Oval 1-0. North Village Rams was up 2-0 against Crossroads and drew 2-2. PHC defeated Somerset Eagles 3-1 up at the White Hill Field. In the first division, it was Social Club 6, Vasco 0, St. David's 1, Boulevard 0. So those were the games over the weekend. I saw you looking when I said Devonshire Cougars defeated St. George. Yeah, Devonshire Cougars defeated St. George's 1-0. Yeah, no problem.
So I'm actually about trying to make this every week now. Was that the surprise score for the week for you?
Oh, no.
You did pick St. George's to win, so I'm just saying.
I did pick St. George's to win. I picked St. George's to win.
What was the surprise score line this week?
The result, the final score at, it was 2. The final score at Bernard Park and the score line at White Hill Field. And I say that because PHC have been struggling a bit with that young team, and they've been creating a lot of chances, but they haven't put many of them away in a game. And then to come away with Enrique Russell getting a hat trick, a 3-1 win right now, I think. But I say surprised because PHC is still growing. Somerset Eagles have to figure out how to stop leaking goals. They're played 3 games and they scored 3 goals, but they've given up 12 goals. So they have to figure a way to stop leaking goals. And then, of course, if you look at it, Crossroads hadn't scored a goal all season. They go to the defending league champions. They're down 2-0 after some 25 minutes, and then they find a way to come back. I was at that game early. When I left, it didn't look like Crossroads even knew what the goal was. But as the game goes on, you get an opportunity, and one goes in soon after another one, and that's exactly what happened. So those were the two surprises for me. Yeah, in the Premier Division. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had a chance to speak with coach of Crossroads, and after the game, and I asked him about the score. It's like, what do you play? So hey, you can't win. You got a point this week. No, man. It's just it's frustrating because when they are creating chances, they're not putting them away.
Mm-hmm.
And we have said it a couple of weeks ago. They was having troubles creating chances.
Right.
And especially with a goal poacher like Donovan Thompson, it gets frustrating because then they feel they have to do it by themselves.
Right.
They're getting frustrated. They're not probably getting service, so they're trying to do more than they really have to instead of, and now they're out of position.
Right.
And one, with strike, especially someone's playing up top, is that 2 feet, a 2 feet radius, you can just be out of position for the tackle.
Yeah.
That's all it takes, 2 foot radius. 2 feet either way, and you can miss.
Yeah. But as you know, even in professional sports, if things are not going your way, the ball just don't seem to bounce right for you at the right time. And it's very hard. Some players, eventually you get out of that funk, but it's how you stay in it. I mean, some people just give up. Yeah. And sometimes giving up is the easiest thing to do. But if you stay focused, eventually the ball will hit you and go into goal. You know what I mean? And then luck turns and changes.
I always had a chance to speak to one of the village players. I'm not calling his name because he's a good friend of mine. But I said, so, after I already spoke to the Crossroads coach, I'm saying, well, what happened? Yeah, he was up 2-0. And says just a lack of concentration.
Mm.
And that's what
Crossroads did get 2 goals in 2 minutes.
Yeah, he said that's what you turned off. He said we was in control. It was just lack of concentration, and defensive errors. And hey, they capitalized. It is nothing. What you gonna do?
Yeah.
So,
the good thing for both teams, obviously, you didn't lose. Although it will feel like a loss for North Village and it will feel like a victory for Crossroads, but now you have a chance to reflect on that. And for North Village, for Kenny, he will have an opportunity to talk to the players to make sure that they now stay focused for the duration. And obviously for Crossroads, the coach will be talking about trying to keep that momentum going. It's going to be difficult. You got teams playing this weekend, and then next Wednesday around this time, the first semifinal of the Dud League will be played between Somerset Trojans and Devonshire Cougars. So, and then at 9, it'll be North Village and Dendy Town. So, when you start looking at how much football is going to be played by a selected amount of teams, it's going to be tricky this weekend for some coaches because obviously you want to make the final. But the other thing is you don't want to fall behind in the league.
Well, we spoke about that, and that's one thing that we're really looking at with this year is those teams now. With that draw by North Village, that drops them down to second place, even though we're only a few games into the season. But it keeps everybody into a bunch at the top of the table, but also that bunch at the bottom of the table. So if we're looking at the standings with Robert Hall on top of the table right now, followed by tied with North Village at 10 points. Devonshire Cougars third, Dendy Town, Somerset Trojans, Southampton Rangers, PAC now. Southampton Rangers and PAC, there's 2 teams that you expect, especially Rangers with the squad they have. You expect them to rise up.
Right.
But once again, who do you expect to fall?
Right.
So, because Cougars look like they're just nobody's really paying attention.
Yeah. Just going about our business. They're basically quietly going about their business.
Robin Hood
the results that they needed.
And it's not like Robin Hood should be a surprise to anybody because they haven't surprised anybody in the last 4 years.
Right.
But they always seem to go under the radar, pick up the points they need, And now, next thing you know, okay, hey, that far ahead. So,
Right.
but then when you look behind, St. George's Colts 3, Devonshire Colts 1, Crossroads 1, finally getting off the mark, and Somerset Eagles yet to get off the mark. So, you know, 3 teams are going down.
Yeah, yeah.
So once again, if those teams are going to come up, who's going to fall?
Right.
So
Well, it's going to be, I mean, if you look at it, this weekend actually kind of separates the man from the boys again, because it's going to be a 4th game for everyone, with the exception of the teams that have had the byes. You know, Dandytown have a game in hand that could put them tied with North Village, and no, actually puts them on 9.
Yeah, they're on 9 now.
Right,
Yep.
so that would actually make them the league leaders.
Yes.
That will make them the league leaders. So, I mean, if the teams in the front win this weekend, and the teams that are, because if you look at it, St. George's are playing Robin Hood.
Yep. Robin Hood would be favorite.
Right, they are. North Village North Village going to where? I can't remember. I'll get it, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend of football, because, like I said, if the top teams win, and those 5 that you said, starting with St. George's, if they don't get a point, the whole starts to open up.
Now, I remember listening to you, the show on Sunday, the football show on Sunday. We were talking about Derbyshire Colts, the game coming up this week at Police Field.
Police Field, yep. They play Somerset Trojans.
Once again, Somerset has 6 points. Derbyshire Colts has 1.
Oh no, they don't play Somerset. No, because they'd already lost to Somerset. They play Southampton Rangers, I believe.
Rangers, okay, so you're there. So Rangers has 4 points, and Derbyshire Colts have 1. So
right. So if those 2 teams actually end up with a draw, the hole starts to get bigger. That's not the hole you want to be in.
And
so whoever, if one of the teams win, then obviously it makes for a good week for them. But if you don't get that win, you kind of leave yourself in a big hole to try and get out of. Because, like I said, every week without the win, the hole gets bigger and bigger. So, you know, it's time now to not push the panic button, but to look to get those points that are needed.
Hold up. I don't think Devonshire Colts will have pushed any panic button, because they're probably still trying to find a way around in the Premier. It's just getting up to the speed. But if Rangers loses, I think all the pressure is on Rangers to actually win.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the lineup for Premiership this weekend. Saturday, St. George's hosts Robin Hood at Wellington Oval. Devonshire Cougars are at home to Somerset Trojans. Devonshire Colts are at home to Rangers. Dandytown are at home to Somerset Eagles. And Crossroads are at home to PHC. So if PHC go down and beat Crossroads, if Dandytown beat Eagles, if Devonshire Colts and Southampton Rangers draw, and Devonshire Cougars beat Somerset Trojans, and Robin Hood beat St. George's, that hole that I'm talking about, it opens up.
Put it this way: there's the it open up at least by 6 points.
Yes, yeah,
at least by 6 points. Because PAC have 4, so they will actually open up by 4 points. Because PAC has 4 now, add another 3,
7.
So that'll be 7, and the rest will stay as par down below 3, 1, 1, 2. So just that alone, so man, it's already, and that sticks. See, that's what you want as a fan. I mean, obviously you want to run away, but as a fan, you want to go see competitive football.
Right, and believe it or not, as the hole gets bigger, those 4 teams, when they meet each other, those games will be battles, because you have to beat the teams that are close to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's going to be a tall order for those teams. They'll be looking at the schedule and saying, okay, when do we play this team and when do we play them at home? Because obviously everybody thinks their home is a fortress.
Now, I would also say just like you see in the EPL, when the top teams, especially that's involved in the cup, excuse me, involved in the cups coming up, obviously they're playing a lot of midweek.
Right. The good thing is this week, North Village have the bye, so they don't play this weekend. They can sit off until Wednesday night.
So it's going to be interesting to see the endurance of these players. You mentioned the games coming up, and can the lower teams take advantage of these top teams?
Yeah.
One-off game.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's going to come down to obviously it's a long season, but it's going to come down to where we want to go. It's interesting how things shape up as the season goes on. So
another thing that just before I know we're got a guest coming shortly, but another thing I'm just looking at, the top goal scorers.
Yes.
Both divisions. We're seeing some names up the top that we haven't seen.
To youngsters.
The names we normally see at the top of these divisions, we're not seeing them.
Right.
So, be interested to see if these youngsters could keep it up.
Well, one thing is for sure, when a youngster scores, wherever he goes, if it's school or if it's work or whatever, the chest is stuck out. So,
I'll tell you a little story. Mr. Russell, I have to call him Mr. Russell. I don't know if you remember, because you'd have been down the track. He did start racing motocross.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they sprung up now. Jason is taller than both of us.
That's what everybody's been telling me. I'm like, oh, it can't be. I got this picture around here. Is in the other room now?
Right.
So, this will be interesting.
Yeah. You mentioned karting earlier as well. Their season got into the second week. I'm really impressed of how that sport has grown over the years. Pretty much it was getting like how we've seen powerboat going, where not many guys are racing on a weekend and so forth. And karting used to be like that maybe about 5 years ago, but now when you start seeing, the L206 senior class got 12 drivers. The cadet class, the cadet class is one of those classes where it's for beginners, the newer people. You've got 3 people in that class. You've got the stock, modified, and the shifter class and all that. But it's exciting, and I think the way how they have it orchestrated, where you have the flag people, the different carts are in charge of being flaggers for different classes, and then the next class gets ready, they go right out right after. So it's not a lot of standing around watching and waiting for the next event, kind of thing. And the way they have it structured right now, I think it's pretty exciting. And I think if anybody wants to have an opportunity to see what goes on down there, it's really, really something to see.
One thing of just hearing people talk, and I've heard a couple of drivers talk, but I think one of the biggest changes that we've seen over the years is the collaboration with all the drivers.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of sports, especially motorsports, it's a solo project. It's a click here and a click there and a click there. But you see all these drivers coming together to help out all the drivers or people to get interested even into the sport, where they need parts of this, that, and they're willing to help out any way, which way possible, so they can build the sport up.
Right.
And doing so, I mean, that is just a map for success, if you ask me, because now when the youngsters see that, yes, when we get on the track, when that flag drops, it's competition. Yes.
Right.
Once that the checker flag drops, flies, then let's get back to help make your car even faster, because now you can push me or whatever the case may be. So I think that's the thing that's going to keep the sport going and growing.
Yeah. Well, I did say at the bottom of the hour we would have Sean Silverco joining us, and there is the man himself, Sean Silverco, the director of the Bermuda Championships. We're only a week or so away. We're dealing with a tropical storm or a hurricane coming our way, but exciting news yesterday with the announcement of 4 former major players signing up to play this year. in Bermuda. Take us through how when these guys did commit to the event, how much it would improve the value of the event for Bermuda.
Well, first of all, guys, good to be on again. Thank you so much for having us. And I can tell you that we've been extremely excited to track the field as it's been. It's a shame we missed by one day. Henrik Stenson is also joining us. So that was a big name to add as well. So to have, basically every major championship accounted for with the guys in our field, and to be able to put forth the effort to get these guys here, take care of them in this, COVID era, have them travel in, go through the protocols, and so excited to come to Bermuda. We couldn't be more thrilled. The weather this week might throw a little kink in us, but to be very honest with you guys, to me, it's kind of made us learn a lot more about Bermuda and what we need to do to prepare. We've learned a lot about the local businesses who work with us, because when you go through trying things like this, what you deal with, of course, is adversity. And when you work adversity with the companies that you have work as your partners, and they all come through for you, you have a unified bond. And the companies that are out here doing what they're doing for us are going to make it special for those players that are coming in to play in the event. So yesterday's announcement was great. We expect a few more good names to throw at you, and our first one landed today with Henrik Stenson. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will know that name, who's been around for quite some time. But just looking at the last time we talked, you were talking about, the work that had to be done to prepare. Obviously, a little work shifts now to make sure that we have everything nailed down, and hopefully we don't get as much wind and damage done from this hurricane that's due to expected on Friday. But it gives us a few days to kind of get things back up and running after that, and have the golfers have the opportunity to go out and practice once they arrive here and they're able to get out to do that. Looking at the golf course last week during those the playoffs, it looked in great shape. What did you think of it?
Well, so we were very pleased, because I'm not an agronomist. So I really, truly, I'm like you, probably. I look at a grass and I say, well, it's green or it's brown. Mm-hmm. The pros, and we have one of the best pros here, Cal Roth, who has done agronomy for professional golf tournaments for many, many years. I don't mean to age him, but ultimately he is a pro. He has been here helping out the crew down the stretch, and their greens have improved even in the last week dramatically. And, when it gets down to it, this golf course is defended by the wind and the elements. It's known for its putting surfaces. It's fun to play mentality. I mean, it's a golf course you can both attack, and at the same time, something like today happens where you have a 35-mile-an-hour wind, sustainable. You all of a sudden go, whoa, this is a totally different golf course. And so it's really been fun to kind of watch that. I personally, and I like birdies, and I like to see people do well. I think there might have been a few too many of them last year because the golf course was, so benign. And so when you have an opportunity to look at this golf course now under these conditions, you're going to see some of the best players in the world come over here and go, wait a minute, this is a true test of golf. Mm-hmm. And it's because this is all about what Bermuda brings, which is the wind, the changing wind, the fast conditions because of the wind. And so Dennis Pilgrim, everybody at the course has done such a good job of putting in those extra hours to get it looking. So when we show up next week with the PGA Tour pros, it's going to look fantastic. Whether it plays hard or not plays hard is always going to be a part of the elements. And that's what Bermuda can throw at you. And so, you asked me, I'm very, very pleased with what I see. Right. We could not be more ecstatic about the field, and also just in general, the vibe that we're getting from the community. I mean, we're sold out all but Thursday at this point. We sold out Friday today. So Thursday, there's some tickets remaining, but ultimately, wow, the commitment that we've got from the community has been great, Earl.
Right. I think that once the names start dropping, I think that's where the tickets When we first talked, I said the Sundays will go first. That will be the first lot to go, and then obviously Saturday, Friday. But when the names start dropping, basically that's when people want to get there and see who makes that cut. And it'd be interesting because on the Bermuda side, you have Michael Sims who missed the cut last year by 2 strokes, or by a stroke, by 2 strokes. So I know he'll be looking to improve that position this time around, and obviously Kamiko Smith, his first time, and Anthony Phipps, his first time. But if they play the golf course and not get caught up in the awe of being paired with maybe one of the big names, I think that they stand a chance of representing themselves well.
Oh, I do too. I mean, especially because I think if the conditions are such that they are playing with a little bit of wind, their chances are better. I mean, they grew up around this, you know.
Right.
It's like guys, you always hear about guys who grew up in Texas and how well they play those golf courses in the wind, right? Well, that's no different than the Bermudians we have in this field. They've
Right.
certainly learned how to play these conditions, and this is their home course. You know, I mean, they know it inside and out. I fully anticipate that there's going to be a Bermudian, hopefully 3, that make the cut this year. I really do. These guys are quality players. And albeit they're going up against the best in the world, they know this place like the back of their hand. They're going to do well.
Yeah. Jay, any question?
Yeah. First of all, welcome to the show. Well, welcome back.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it, man.
But so we talked about the challenges that the course can offer to some of these players. We do have a couple of returning players. But what has been the challenge for you guys to convince players who've never been to Bermuda to come to Bermuda and play on this course? Well, I mean, because obviously, there's other competitions around, the world that they could probably go to. But why are we picking Bermuda? What is the selling point?
Well, that's pretty easy. The selling point is a great group of people, a very enjoyable golf course to play, and it's paradise. I mean, last year, I think we had 10 spouses join. Now we're in the era of COVID. We have 34 spouses coming next week. 34. Everybody wants to get away.
Yeah.
And what happened last year, and I'll get into the field and the dynamics of the field here in a minute, but what happened last year was 120 guys came in here. A lot of them saw Bermuda for the first time. And they went back and they talked to their fellow pros, which is their fraternity of guys. And they said, man, you have got to check this out. Now, we are who we are. We are the top 50 to 120 players. We're not going to be the top 0 to 50 players because in most years, they're not going to be able to play. So we target those players 50 to 120. And frankly, between all of us, 50 to 120 has huge names in it.
Yes.
I mean, really great guys and great names and quality golf. And that's going to be our lot in life. That's who we are, until which point Bermuda becomes a standalone event, and that can happen one day. But ultimately, in the meantime, we are going to be that lot, and we want to draw the best possible players out of that lot. So getting them here, it's about word of mouth. Last year when we got them here, and I can't take credit for this, Bermuda took care of it for me. I mean, everywhere they went, they are so well taken care of. And this year, more than ever, these guys have to operate in a bubble, right? So the complexity of what we have to do to take care of them is even more difficult. But we can roll out the red carpet because the moment they get to the airport, they're taken by people who are tested. They're free of concern. They're brought to the Hamilton Princess. They're within a cocoon because we basically have that entire resort at that point in time. They've opened up restaurants for them for just the players and people who are inside the bubble. We ferry them from there to the golf course just inside the bubble. And then when they're at the golf course, we take care of them and keep them safe inside that bubble. So their main goal is they want to continue to play golf. Bermuda gave us a perfect opportunity in which to do that. In the future, Hamilton will once again, the areas around Hamilton once again, hopefully in time, both ends of the island are going to see golf. And that's, our goals for making this event bigger, more in the future. Okay. But for right now, we were able to get them into a safe place. And that was what we had to do this year. And we had a lot of great partners and help to do it. And I give a million kudos. And I'm sorry if I keep saying this on your show, Earl, but there's just no way we could have done this without the support of the government, without the support of your health department, without the support of your national security team, and the safety that they have brought to this island.
Being that it's this year, it's a standalone event. What are the projections of viewers around the world?
Well, I mean, I think this could be unbelievable. We have 57 hours of coverage on Golf Channel, 15 hours of live coverage, but we're going to be re-shown that many times. Ultimately, if you go on the Golf Channel that week, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see Bermuda. And to me, that is incredible. I said this to the tourism summit the other day. I said the amazing ability to be able to showcase this island. And it's not a mistake that it's showcased at Port Royal with that backdrop as your commercial for the island. And, you know, I tell people all the time, and I think that's what you're getting at. Professional golfers went back last year and did the same thing I did when I landed here 2 years ago. They went back and they went, oh, man, you guys are missing out. It's over here. It's 3 hours away. And it's amazing golf, amazing restaurants, amazing resorts, beaches, all kinds of opportunities here. And once I learned that, to me, it was a no-brainer that this place needed to have a PGA Tour championship.
Yeah. When you look at how the layouts are going to be this year, a little different. I want to make sure that because you did mention the national security and the health, just reiterating the safety concerns around the golf course for the spectators, ensuring that they are wearing their mask while moving about. Right. And obviously you'll have people stationed around to ensure that people are following the guidelines.
Yes. You know, it's a tough deal this year, but one thing everybody has to remember is you have to be courteous to your fellow man. You know, our mantra is please wash your hands, watch your distance, and wear a mask. And as long as you do those things, you'll take care of one another. You're going to have a great opportunity out there to be a part of a smaller crowd to see a PGA Tour event. And we're very hopeful that, and I'm sure that Bermudians will take care of each other and keep us safe. In the meantime, we'll have people out there that will subtly remind you. And the real rule is that you're asked to wear a mask unless you're stopped to eat or drink. And ultimately, you know, we know that when it's all said and done, we've taken an abundance of caution to make sure if you think of 750 to 800 people are able to join a golf tournament over 200 acres, for that person who either feels at concern or risk, they're going to be able to find a place that they can feel comfortable because there's a ton of room out there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Sean, I do want to thank you for your time. We do look forward to, I guess, another release of more names coming out as the week goes on. Because you just said the name tonight kind of piqued both of our interests because it's a name that we're familiar with. So obviously, you know, that those are the type of things that we're looking for in Bermuda, and obviously showcasing our island to the world as an opportunity to come play golf, visit the beaches, and to get the hospitality that we offer each and every day. Yeah.
Well, listen, Earl, Jay, I appreciate it, guys. I mean, we can't do it without the partners like you guys. We're having fun here, and we can't wait to have you guys out. And everybody on island that's paid for that ticket, we're going to make it worth your while. So we look forward to having you.
All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Okay. Well, Jay, of course, it's interesting times. I mean, you start talking about Padraig Harrington, who was here, I believe, 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Well, he was here the last time that the Grand Slam was here. So he'll be familiar with the golf course. So, you know, these are the type of things that we look forward to a lot of times, and the opportunity to actually showcase the island for us. It's one of those things that we always look forward to.
Not only that, it's also for our local golfers or local fans who've had relationships with these players when they've came down previously. Now, I doubt if they'll have much contact with these players this time around. But like I said, a lot of these players who have came before, I'm pretty sure they've made relationships, whether it be with the taxi drivers or the folks in the hotels. So, you know how we are when the folks come back. Hey,
good to see you. What took you so long?
And it's amazing because we're a country that doesn't run behind any what we call celebrities. Like we're gonna, when we see you, hey, what's up? And then we keep if we're gonna talk, we're gonna talk. Or if not, see you when I see you. And it's relaxing for a lot of these players because they feel, okay, I feel like home. It feels relaxing. And that's what I wanted. That's what I was trying to get out of the show, to see if our vibe, as we would call, are they taking that vibe back away to, bring other people back? And we could see that happens. Like he said, after the first time he came, he just couldn't wait to get back to just talk about Bermuda and say, hey, you guys are missing out. So once again, I'm just glad they're here. Number one, to help out with the exposing our beautiful island.
Right.
Also, I mean, just you need stuff like this in these times, Earl. I mean, I keep glossing over because if you listen to the news is doom and gloom.
Yep.
You need this in these times.
Yeah. Well, Jay, we've come to the part where we're going to get our overseas report. Let's get to hear from Anne-Marie Burke from Barbados.
Hi, Earl. It's always so good to hear from you. This time around, I'm coming to you while I'm on vacation from mainstream media work, but nonetheless, still always in tune with sports here in Barbados. And I'm going to begin with what they call the sport of champions, horse racing. And Barbados is gearing up to go into the history books in the Caribbean as the first venue to have racing on the lights and racing at night. The Garrison Savannah, our lone horse racing venue here on the island, is currently being retrofitted with lights right around the perimeter of the Savannah, in a preparation for what we are looking forward to having, which is something that many horse racing fans would have wanted over the years, racing at night. It's expected that the lights should be completed by the end of November, maybe even mid-November, and that by late November, we actually have our first horse racing event on the lights, and that will be a historic day for us as well as for horse racing in the Caribbean. So we are looking forward to that. But even prior to that, on October the 24th, we'll have horse racing resuming after months of lockdown due to the COVID-19 restrictions that we would have had in place in Barbados. They've now eased quite a bit. And so on October 24th, we'll have the Barbados Guineas, and that will be the first race day we would have had since the Saturday Gold Cup back in March. So we're looking forward to horse racing resuming, and maybe by late November, we're ready to go with those lights and have horse racing at night and going to the history books in that way. So big things happening here on the island. And outside of that, our jockeys that are playing their trade in Canada, they are sweeping up the titles over there at the various horse racing venues. For one over at Fort Erie, Juan Crawford, he is a winner. He is the winning jockey at Fort Erie with 48 wins for that season. So congratulations to Juan for that feat. And also looking to wrap up a jockey's title is Rico Walcott over there at Century Downs. He claimed 2 wins on Sunday, and that brought his wins to 61. He's 20 clear of Venezuelan jockey Rigo Sarmiento. And Antonio Whitehall is another Barbadian, actually in third on 37 wins. Now that season at Century Downs ends on November the 8th. So we're looking forward to Rico snapping up that title as well. So 2 titles looking to be under the belt already for Barbados in terms of our jockeys over there in Canada. And of note is that Antonio Whitehall, he is even in the running to be the top jockey across Canada. He would have played his trade at Century Downs. He would have had a bit at Fort Erie as well as over at the Century Mile as well. So therefore, for him, he has really been putting in the work. The only thing that is standing against him is that his two major competitors are actually still racing at Woodbine, and the Woodbine race season finishes in December, whereas he will finish playing his trade at the end of November. So that may have a factor into him winning the overall jockeys title in Canada, but nevertheless, he put in a really, really, really good performance. So our jockeys are doing well, and the Sport of Champions, they're representing well for the island. In terms of motorsport into the fast lane, Flow King of the Hill is set for this Sunday, and it's in the lead up to Sol Rally Barbados, which is next week, Sunday, which is October 31st, November the 1st. There's a reduced field this year. Usually we have about 100 entries, but due to the COVID-19 restrictions and protocols in place, that field has been cut down significantly, but nevertheless, we're looking forward to having motorsport action. A number of international drivers are coming into the island. We have Ken Block out of the USA. We have Mark Edwards, who is a rally champion over there in Britain, also registered to compete. So we are looking forward to having the international field that we usually have, along with some of our top local drivers, especially Dane Skeet, who is the son of the top rally driver in Barbados, Roger the Sheriff Skeet. Roger has claimed 13 Rally Barbados titles to his name. So his son is looking to take over his legacy. Roger is still going to be behind the wheel of one of his vehicles, but he's not as sharp as before. He's getting on in age, so we're looking that the younger Ski is going to take over from his dad. But of course, he has to battle with some of the major players in the sport in terms of international drivers, international rally drivers, that is, as well as some of the top regional drivers like Jeffrey Panton out of Jamaica, who is actually the defending champion, having won last year. So we are looking forward to some really good action over the next 2 weekends in motorsport. And in terms of football, Ambassador Ambassador Pandiani of Argentina, he would have done a lot to develop Barbados here on the island, and his ambassadorship to Barbados has come to an end. So he leaves the island at the beginning of next month, the beginning of November, and in honor of Ambassador Pandiani, there was a celebrity football match over the weekend. We had a number of our local entertainers. We also had some of our local, we even had some of the politicians playing as well. At least two of our politicians actually put on football gear, and they were part of that send-off and farewell football match. He has done a lot to pump some much needed money and support into football here on the island. He's done it even with infrastructure as well, infrastructural development at the BFA's headquarters there in Rodi. And he has really been a good player in football. We also have a partnership fostered with Argentina, where a number of our young players, the under 19 team, they actually go over to Argentina quite often for camps and stuff like that. So barring all the restrictions and that we do get rid of COVID-19 once and for all, that partnership is expected to continue, even though Ambassador Pandiani is leaving Barbados to return home after his tenure here in Barbados, but he was celebrated on the football field last Sunday. And volleyball is continuing. We had the knockout finals last week, and the league competition is actually in play. So volleyball is being played at the Rolly Gym at least 3 times a week. You can get volleyball action on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Sundays. So sportsmen and women are actually getting to go out and have some fun with that. The T20 cricket across the local clubs and leagues is also continuing as well. So you do have cricket on Saturdays and Sundays. So there's sporting action in cricket as well. And speaking of cricket, interestingly, a little bit off the field, but still not too far away from sport, Floyd Reefer, you might remember the name. He is a former West Indies captain as well as a former West Indies coach. He's actually thrown in his hat into politics. We do have a by-election currently going on right here in the island. It is for one of our constituencies, the St. George North constituency, and he's thrown in his hat to be the candidate-elect for that constituency. So he's been out on the campaign trail. He's been out, trying to let persons know that I'm not only a cricketer, I'm going to come and give you political representation as well in that constituency. So that by-election is set for November the 11th. So he has been really taken to the platform to voice his opinion on how he can develop not only sports within Barbados, within that community, but also how he can effect some change politically as well. So we've had a lot of action here in Barbados. So I can't say that the year is quieting down as it usually would. I think that with COVID-19, a lot of persons started to capitalize on the fact that later in this year, we've had a little bit more, a little less restrictions placed on us, and therefore sport is really up and running here on the island. Again, so good to hear from you yet another week, and I look forward to hearing from you next week.
Well, Jay, one thing's for sure for Barbados, they talk a lot about horse racing. And interestingly enough, the harness racing season is due to get underway in Bermuda this coming weekend, albeit weather permitting. So Saturday night is due to have the harness race season get underway at the National Equestrian Center on Vesey Street. So, you know, when you start hearing how familiar the islands are when it comes to certain sports, and we tend to do a little, although we don't have particular horse racing, we have harness racing. So, you know, it's similar but not the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and you know, that's something that I was hoping that we'll get, you know, on our sporting calendar. You know, these drivers, you know, they got ambitions too, you know, so not just only here but also internationally. So the more, and they have some nice young drivers. We have some nice young drivers down at the track. So just hopefully, you know, they can get, you know, maybe it might be hard this year to go internationally, but be ready for next year.
Yeah, one thing's for sure: the first couple of race weeks, the youngsters tend to let everything go because they're new to the track. They want to show that they deserve to be on the track. So for a couple of the veterans, they kind of take a back seat and allow the youngsters to express themselves. And then when they're ready, they come back and knock on the door and say, hold on.
Yep, hold on.
The experienced people are here now. So put your pony, give them the number 3 or the number 4 pad, and you go sit back and watch how it's done down here.
And it's interesting, like you said, the banter that goes on between the drivers and the families in the camps, it's unbelievable. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, before we go, obviously, the talk of football globally was the Liverpool Everton tackle goalkeeper. As you can tell, the referee has now been demoted from Premiership football. For how long, I don't know. You know, the several decisions, as you were indicating early in the show, several decisions. When we look at it, we wonder how one could come to a decision. But we were not in his shoes on the day. We were not in the flow of the game during the day. No matter how you watch it on television, you're not in present, you're not there. So, you know, we could analyze and say it was this person's fault. You know, I've heard talk the referee assistant should have waited a while before putting up the flag, because that's usually what happens. They wait until to see what happens with the play. Even though the whistle had gone, should the goalkeeper have been shown any card? All those scenarios come through, and we know that the goalkeeper has not been and will not be penalized for the tackle that has put out the Liverpool defender for up to 6 months.
Unfortunately, I would think he's been good because of this one. And if I remember correctly, I think he was involved in a harsh decision against my team, Manchester United, early in the season when the Lindor was called for a handball penalty when the ball was basically blasted against his arm. And I said, if they start giving that penalty, then anybody in the box, if you're just in a precarious position, just kick it against the guy's arm, and they're gonna have to give it. The VAR, obviously, I love because you want to get the right calls. But people are just saying VAR. You got to also remember there's a human element behind the VAR.
Yeah.
VAR is just the technology to get it to whatever decision you want to make. But there's
He has a chance to look at it a second time.
Once again, that if you're going to blame the guy, the main referee, but then what about the assistants and the VAR assistant? So these are the things that, I mean, and then 1 minute, you're hearing that, okay, a player could be offside, but they have to wait till the play zone is completed before they flag him, which I'm seeing now could be very dangerous. But then you want this particular instance, you're okay, the play's over at offside. So whatever happened after offside has nothing to do because it was already deemed, offside. So it's so much gray area.
Yeah. It just needs more discussion, more, I guess, collaboration. We saw when the NFL brought in their replay for a 2-year period, it was deemed as we got to take it out of the referee's hands because they're dealing with so many other things, and now everything's done in one location in New York for all the games.
I can say this here, but it's probably the way the world's going because obviously you heard too that we know that baseball's looking at the same thing. Basically, was getting rid of the behind the plate umpire. And using the technology to call balls and strikes because in both leagues, American League and the National League, the strike zones are different.
For years, you often heard the commentator whenever there's a game on, they would say, Jason Ford's strike zone is higher. Where Earl Bison's strike zone is lower. But that means that the players have to know who the umpire is to know what the strike zone is going to be.
And that's where probably now with VAR, it's probably going against what a lot of these players, because you said a lot of these players will know how the umpires, referee the game, and whether, you can get away with a hard tackle early or you cannot. I mean, I saw a game over the weekend that, with so many yellow cards in the first half, I'm like, man, is anybody going to survive? Because the referee was going, okay, you have one. Okay, you have one. Okay, you have one. So
he's in a giving mood. He was in a giving mood.
Hey, buddy, you want to handle some players on the field. But no, it's going to be, and, on top of it all, the stresses from, the COVID situation and people's stress levels and, ooh, man, and nobody will see anybody get hurt. I don't think nobody, even the goalkeeper, I don't think he meant to injure Van Dijk. Earl, as a former goalkeeper yourself, we were taught to, hey, that's your box.
Yeah, he's a baller man.
And I'm pretty sure you got cussed out if you didn't command at least a 6-yard box.
Well, yeah.
Not 18-yard a little harder. But 6-yard box, I had coaches, gave you this straight this is your box.
Yeah.
If they feel they could come in your box, well then
you deserve all the goals you get.
Whether sometimes you gotta go up with a knee,
or punch.
Instead of catching, that's punch. It's so many different things that I'm seeing that play over and over and over. And yes, it was a hard, but I just think the way the players collided, that was probably more the position.
His body was completely open. From what I've seen, his body was completely open, and the balance in which he had.
Nobody could predict that. When you go into a collision, nobody knows who's going to be balanced or unbalanced going into it.
Right.
And saying that, going forward, we're seeing some even today in Champions League with Real Madrid going down, Barcelona didn't look good, Borussia Dortmund went down, United beat who? PSG with Neymar.
Yeah. What was it, 2-1, right?
Yep, yesterday, and United scored all 3 goals. So, so it's gonna be interesting. With these games coming fast and furious, and United almost had basically a makeshift team out there yesterday. So to see what Liverpool's going to do without, and I believe
they came away with a 1-0 win today against Ajax. So
Ajax scored their own goal. So
Yeah.
so it's gonna be interesting.
Sometimes you don't need to score to win.
That's cool too. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Well, partner, we've come to the end of another show here.
Before we go, Earl, it's a bittersweet moment for me personally, and we lost another icon, I believe, a hero for a lot of we young boys, especially coming up in Warwick and Southampton area.
Right.
But I smile because I remember all the memories and all the words that he encouraged me personally as a player. And I'm talking about Shiraz Ali.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you've seen him play many years and what he brought to the local game. But as a man, I never really got to see him play because he had basically finished his career when I came along. But I knew when I was up at Warwick, and at that time, it was so hard breaking into those teams because those teams were a slew of names that you hear for years and years. The unfortunately, what was happening is that around those times, even some of these players were probably getting way up in age. Some of these players are 40 plus, and Lord James he was still playing, and I'm like, oh, Lord James is 50 years old,
right?
And you always heard this, this thing of, oh, you guys are young, plenty of time. Plenty of time, don't worry about it. And I lost a friend, Michael Rayner, who's a real good cricketer. And I think he'd have been one of Bermuda's fiercest fast bowlers, period. And to lose him at 16 years old. So that year, 1987, I had a good year at that time, it was Shao. Also First Division. We used to play a lot of First Division Saturdays.
Right.
I actually played a game up at Rangers. Played against Rangers. Batted number 5, I believe. They had like 48 not out. Took 5 dismissals. And Shiraz Ali approached me. Now, I've known it because at then players, and it's like, look, we could use you up Rangers. Now, I was carrying a lot of water down at Warwick, I can tell you. I was part of James's water service. Myself, Michael, Kyle Iborn,
Ford water truck.
Man, look, man, we knew how to back them up. We knew how to put them sideways. You want to hose, whatever you want to be. I knew how to get those oranges, the perfect sweetness to you. And dumb, man. And as a youngster, especially when you feel that I won't say you've arrived, but you feel that you can make a difference to the team or you can help the team. You really want to be in that team. So I was like, well, Mr. Ali, because, you couldn't call nobody the first name.
Right.
You have Quentin Sherlock. He's a former cup match player. Wicked. Darren Butchie B. Birchall was up there and, says, no, you come. You have the gloves. Me? You sure? And I'm 15 years old. I'm like, you sure? Actually, I was 14 at the time. And he encouraged, and once I made my decision, obviously my brother from another mother, Kyle Lightborn, he decided to go with us. And also Earlston Wolf. And we all left work together and went up to Southampton Rangers. And to get the buy-in from the John Tuckers, Olin Jones, Wainwright, Calix Pickles, all these guys, and I'm just the little youngster. But Mr. Ali made sure that we had buy-in as a team, and not to only myself, but any youngster who was really interested in the game. As long as he saw them put in the work, he was there to push them on. So to his family, I just want to say thank you for allowing him to bless some of we youngsters out there who was looking for that encouragement, because I think that's, we've talked about this a lot of times. A lot of the players who have gone on and stopped playing failed to come back and put back in with the youngsters. And Mr. Ali definitely done that. So I just want to say thank you to the family, and you'll be surely missed.
Yeah, he will be by many. Yeah. Well, Jay, have a good night.
Take care.